Good morning. Hello, law aspirants. So, vocabulary moving on in full swing. Yes. So, I had come with some of the problems and the feedback which I got from the students. They had maintained a notebook. I had asked you earlier also to maintain a root notebook. Write the root, write the meaning and write the examples. Examples will continue. This will be your own personal dictionary. If you do that, things will be really accessible for you. Nothing will become a chimera. Yes, chimera, which is the face of the lion, the body of the goat and the tail of the serpent, is something which is impossible, something which does not exist, and that is we don't want you to face, right? Let's begin with today's words directly. The word we are taking up for today is susceptible. Susceptible means something which is capable of doing things, something which is allowing, something which is permitting. जो चीज़ allow करता है कि ऐसा हो सके. Likely or liable to be influenced or harmed by a particular thing. Capable or admitting of, allowing, permitting. मतलब आप उस चीज़ को होने दे रहे हो. You are allowing that thing to happen. You are in fact, what are you doing? You are granting. Granting what? Permission for doing anything fruitful or nice. The opposite would be put a restraint to something, immune it, stop it, act as a barrier to it, stop, prevent, thwart, preclude. See, these are all synonyms of the word. You allow the thing and you disallow that thing. Okay. Taking up next word, surveillance. Many times, in the malls and the other places, you must have found that you are under surveillance. Yes, the preposition under. Surveillance means somebody is being watched, you are being watched, you are being inspected, monitored. Means an eye is kept on you. Keeping an eye, the idiom we use for this. Close observation, especially of a suspected spy or criminal. Observation, scrutiny, watch, view, inspection or monitoring. Very close watch. He is on the guard. That means kind of a watch. The opposite would be neglect something, not paying attention to that thing. Okay. Next word is a foreign word, suo motu. Suo motu is relating to the actions taken by the court of its own accord without any request by the parties involved. कोई problem है, कोई dispute है, कोई verbal duel है, तो इसमें court जो decision लेता है, it is not affected or it's not influenced by any of the parties. That is called suo motu. Suo motu is the right of any court. Next word, suffice, is simply meaning sufficient. If you ask me the question, will this vocabulary suffice? Yes, it will be sufficient for you, right? All the knowledge is insuffice, but this vocabulary which we will do and provide you the notes and the roots and the Hindu vocabulary will really suffice for you. That means be enough or adequate, cloy, content, fill, glut, give you a kind of contentment, a kind of a satisfaction. Or if I would say the word convincing, convinced. The opposite would be check, stop that thing, not sufficient, insuffice, not contented, discontented, disappoint, refuse, restrain or restrict something, not allow that thing to happen in the correct form. Next word is subvert. Subvert is to undermine the power and authority of someone. Destabilize. देखिए destabilize का मतलब है उस चीज़ को overthrow करना, break करना, right? You try to remove the power. एक word देखिए please, foreign words. This is used specially for the government. Coup de grace. This means to overthrow the government. Somewhat like a rebellion, somewhat like, a kind of a situation in which you oppose the other. It's a situation where everything is unsettled or overthrowing something, you want to bring down, totally destroy something. That is subvert. The opposite would be elevate. You must have heard of elevated roads that being constructed in Jodhpur. Elevation is a rise. right? It is something which is noble or dignified. It's ennoble, it's uplifted, it's something which is the best of them. Right? Next word, stymie. Stymie किसे बताने से पहले एक छोटा सा point मैं आपसे जरूर discuss करूँगी. Sty, pig का जो home है, that is also called sty. The word here is an impede. That means a kind of an obstacle or barrier. Since I don't have space here, so I just first erase this and then continue. The word stymie is any kind of an obstacle or barrier. It is obstacle, barrier, any kind of hazard, impede, cast off, thwart, or we would say is prevent, stop, preclude. You don't allow that thing to happen. You become an obstacle and barrier in that, and you don't allow that thing to happen. See, put spokes in the wheel जो हमने idiom किया था, that means thwart the execution of a plan. That means you stop that thing to happen. I just guess aside because you could note it down carefully. That is put spokes in the wheel. That is allow that thing to happen or not allow that thing to happen. Right? I hope you have noted down. The opposite would be assist or help something. Fine. Next word we turn to stutter. Stutter is speaking in a bad form. This is a defect in speech. It's a defect in speech. Right? It is something which is you speak in something bad, you babble. See the other defects. There is rant, you lisp. These are also defects in speech. The others are mentioned: stammer, stumble, falter. You speak in a repetition of the sound, or you speak in such a way which is not right. It is some kind of a spurious form. Talk with continued involuntary repetition of the sound. Purposely don't repeat the sound, but it automatically happens, especially initial consonants. You stammer, आपने देखा लोग अकला के अटक अटक के बोलते हैं, and they have that phobia of things. Stumble, falter, a tendency to stutter while speaking, बोलते हुए अटकना, या कोई words को, especially कुछ sounds को, consonants को आप बार बार repeat करें. This is not purposely done. It happens. That's why we told you that's a defect in speech. It's a spurious form or a defect in speech. Note the other defects in speech: babble, rant, and lisp. The opposite will be speaking smoothly, speaking properly, speaking fluently, properly, without any defect. Next word, stunt, stunting. Stunting is the impaired growth. Impaired is wrong, not proper growth and development that children experience from poor nutrition. See, India is a poor country, and many people live in slums and do not have even the basic necessities of life, that is food, clothes and shelter. So there are people who do not even get proper nutrition in their diet, so they have a poor nutrition. There is repeated infection in their body, they face a lot of problems, and inadequate psychosocial stimulation, and they face a psychosocial stimulation. What is psycho? Psycho is of course mind, and social is society. So it's a kind of a stimulation which affects both mind and society. The person's growth is hampered. Right. You are not able to grow in the right form. That is why the opposite would be grow or prosper. reach heights, to rise like a phoenix. Next word, stringent. Stringent is very rude and rigid in its attitude. You know which animal is very rigid in its attitude? Yes, it is mule. The mule is a hybrid form of donkey and horse. From this word we make a word that is mulish. So easy, interesting, and a link with the word mulish. You know, it's very obstinate by nature. The next word linked with this, obstinate. So it's a kind of thing which is found in mule. It is a very जो जिद्दी और अड़ियल रवैये का होता है उसको कहते हैं हम mulish, obstinate or obdurate. Regulations, requirements or conditions which are very strict, very precise and exacting. You're very strict, very firm, you're very rigid and rigorous in your attitude. You are a kind of a stickler. You don't want to change. You are intransigent. Please note the word. Trans is one to the other. In means not. So you don't want to change in your attitude. You are very dogged. You are unadaptable, unadjusting, or I would use the word inflexible. You stick to your views, and the opposite would be yes, it would be lenient, flexible. So it's just a thought, it's the type of thinking where you're very rigid in your thinking and when you're very lenient in your thinking. Next word, strategic. Strategic means whatever, like what do? We frame a strategy for clearing CLAT, a kind of a plan, an overall strategy, right? So relating to the identification of long term or overall aims and interests and the means of achieving them, आप कैसे उन चीज़ों को प्राप्त करोगे? Planned, calculated, deliberate, tactical, very politic. You know, you are moving up in a very systematic way. You make up that these many days I'm going to do vocabulary, I'm going to learn the words, I'm going to link it with the passage, with the other words. So this makes things, you know, more enough defined in a proper form. It is very systematic. And it is well planned, well arranged, right? The opposite would be just happens so. It is something which is random. And the next word, the last for today, stigmatize. Stigmatize is criticize someone. You remember the word 3 C's: condemn, criticize, chaffing, picking holes. How many times the students have done, so now they must have really, you know, gone down the memory lane of it. Disapprove, describe or regard as worthy of disgrace, great disapproval, condemn, denounce, brand, label, criticize, chaffing, picking holes, finding faults. You are very carping by nature. You belittle something or berate something. See, B is completely or thoroughly. So when you make the rate too low for something, you make it in a very lower form, that is the opposite. And the opposite is of course eulogize. From the root eu means good and log is speech. This means simply appreciate, praise, and the root laudatory and commendable. See, we can't stop ourselves from writing all those words which we have done. They will also help you in the tone of the passage. So I hope you have jotted down all the words that I have written on the board and you've understood them, and if any problem, do write. Thank you, students.